I did a video on arrows the other day, and I was talking about carbon and wood and all this. Anyway, I'm going to talk about carbon arrows for just a second. They're great arrows. I love them. And but I had one mishap with one, and it was all my fault. But I want to share that with you to hopefully keep you from having it happen to you. It's a little bit of a long story, but it's a pretty cool story, and I'll share it with you. I was hunting, my buddy Chris Bites and I, we'd hunted together, and we were past the persimmon drop. And we'd both, taken quite a few deer or some deer on persimmons that year. And it was the transition from persimmons to oak trees. And we were really struggling to find hot oak trees. There was no acorns, or the early acorns that dropped, like red oaks and water oaks. And if I remember right, that year the swamp chestnuts finally turned on, but we had no, it was hard to find a feed tree. Well, we'd walked a couple of miles, we were camping. We'd walked a couple of miles and found some pretty good sign. The first evening I climbed on a tree that was kind of hot. I mean, I normally would never climb on it, but it was all we could find. And I didn't see nothing, and when I came down, I was hunting with one of the favorite bows I ever owned. I actually made it. It was called Mojo. It was a glass bamboo bow. I had made it myself, reflex deflex, and killed a whole lot of deer and hogs with it, and a turkey. And I had a quiver on it. And when I let it down, it was in the dark. When I let it down, I didn't know it, but it propped against the tree when I dropped it down with the string. And so I come down, and the tree was kind of viney, and I had actually fought it a little bit. I was using a climber when I went up it. So when I come down, the bottom felt like it was snagged on some vines, and I really put some grit into it, and what it was snagged on was right here on my bow limb. And anyway, it split my bow limb right there. And it was on the bottom part. I had let the bow down, the feathers were up this way, and I bit it with my climber right here and actually ruined my bow. Most favorite bow I ever had. I like to cry. So anyway, I go home and get my other bow. I mean, I got plenty of them. I went home and got the spare bow, which was a hill style bow. And I killed, it's the one I killed 2 deer and a hog at one morning with. It's a fine bow. So I go home and get it, and took the quiver off of that. I mean, I had those arrows set up, and both bows shot the same arrows. So, but I didn't have a quiver on this bow. So I took the quiver off, stuffed them arrows in my dog wear. I grabbed one of them and bent it, everything was good. And I shot my judo. Practiced shot my judo a few times. All my bows, I shoot them up to shoot the same. And they did. It shot right where I was looking. I shot the judo about a dozen times. So I go to the tree that morning, the next morning, and or 2 mornings later, I go to the tree and climb a spot that I'd found, that Chris and I had found. It was better than the other one. It had quite a few acorns, and it had a lot of buck sign around it. That's why I sat on it, because it had a little bit of feed sign, but a lot of buck sign. So I climbed there, and just like it's supposed to happen, about 8 o'clock, here comes a fine rack buck. Probably, I don't know, it was a 7 or 8 point. He was a nice little rack buck. And he comes by about 13 steps, and everything's perfect. I shoot, and everything sounds real funky, almost like a dry fire, sort of. And I didn't visibly see the arrow or nothing. I just made racket. The deer naturally runs off. And I had it on video, on my old video camera. And I just wrote it off as maybe I had the bow in my lap while I'm waiting, and maybe I had pushed the knock off the string with my stomach a little bit. I'm sure you may have had that happen before. And dry fired it. But what bothered me about that was I didn't find the arrow laying down there right there at the base of the tree or anything. But anyway, later on, I put the video on there, and I'm looking at it because I'm curious about how big the buck was, because I normally don't look at horns. If my mind's made up, I'm going to shoot the deer, I never look at his headgear, because all that does is add tension to you. I focus on the shot. I bear down on my spot, and that's what I look at. So when I do the video, I shoot, and I don't see the arrow go, but like a split second after I shoot, you can see my yellow feather spiral down right in front of me, like 5 yards in front of me. And then I get to looking at the arrows, and the arrow is actually cracked. Where there's 2 more arrows in the quiver, broadheads, and they actually cracked right there where the feathers are at. So when I crunched that bow, when that quiver was on the other bow, when I crunched that bow with my climber, I splintered those arrows through where the feathers are at and cracked them all. And I didn't know it. I grabbed the one in front of the feathers and flexed it, and it was all good. And I had shot the judo that was in that quiver, and evidently it didn't get cracked. So when I shot, evidently the arrow come apart right there at the feathers, because that's what I saw spiral down, and the broadhead point went out there on the ground. I'm lucky I didn't get an armful of carbon right there. And then, to add to this funky story, 2 years later, I'm hunting with a guy, and we're coming through there, actually two guys, Mr. George from Florida, and I can't remember the other guy's name. But we're going through there, and I'm showing them a place back there, and I tell them that story. We come to that spot, and I say, yeah, the deer was standing right over there. And the guy that was with Mr. George walks over. I said, I never did find my other end of my arrow. He walks over there and picks it up. So how cool is that? It was about, well, from the feathers forward of an arrow there. So in short, what I'm trying to tell you is, pay attention with your arrows, with your carbons. Flex them from nock to point if you think there's something wrong, and it don't hurt to flex them. Pay attention when you let your bow down, and make the string be longer than how high you're going to climb. What I did, which makes no sense, I didn't want to climb higher than 20 feet ever, so I had a 20-foot string. So when I would climb, if my bow picked up, well, that's time to stop going up. And all you got to do is climb to the cover. You don't have to climb that high. Have your string long enough that your bow don't move. That way, when you let it down, you can swing it out away from you and let it drop out of the way over there. I've actually climbed down before with my bow laying there and staggered up getting out of my stand and stomped my bow right there. So, of course, y'all probably not as clumsy as I am. But anyway, that's a lesson about your bow string, lesson about the carbon arrows. And I actually have a clip, that video clip. If I can find it, I'm going to put it on after this. And there won't be no more talking, I'll just show you. But pay attention. When you hear the shot, you'll see them yellow feathers spiral down in front of that deer, or in front of me, where the deer was at. I mean, I ain't gonna say I would have killed him, but you probably would have lost money had you bet it against it, because he was 13 yards broadside. And I don't do a lot of missing that close. Anyway, thank y'all for watching my video, and I have to excuse my attire today. It's the first day of vacation for me, and Miss Tammy didn't get that memo because she has been working me like a dog. And she actually fell asleep on the recliner right there, and I took a second to get out of the house. And of course, I'm about to run out of stuff to do. Get out of the house and shoot the bow. I'm shooting out of the chair a little bit. I hope to go hunting. Buddy's got some private land, and he runs feeders. I want to go walk some, but if I don't get to shoot one walking, I may set out his feeder in a chair. I'm not going to climb up in no house or nothing and try to shoot one like that. It'd be fun. And so, thank y'all for watching. Thank you, Lord, for a fine day. Daisy Mae, come here. Y'all got to see Daisy Mae. Come on, jump up, jump up, jump up. And Daisy Mae says, thank y'all for watching too. See you next time.